Jeff, the host of the Gridiron.
Fourth and goal to go with the 2. 34 seconds left to go in the ball game. This is the play right now. Takes the snap. Targeted goes in. Targeted all alone. And the quarterback keeps. Wow, what a call. Nobody touched him.
I've seen this here. Coach Prime, right? Oh, boy. He's upset with the Giants about Shedeur. About a couple articles here about like maybe the way the pre-draft process and all that stuff and everything. But that's all, once again, this is stuff I wasn't there. I'm just reading all the, I've read countless articles, a lot of articles about what happened apparently from many different people writing the same thing, right? Like there was an install in there and Shedeur came in and he wasn't prepared for the install or something like that. And Daboll kind of called him out on it. I don't know what that means. And of course, Daboll's not, what are you, stupid? What, you didn't do it? You know what I mean? What are you idiot? That didn't happen. You know what I mean? But somehow he kind of, I don't know. Well, so you're not prepared, or something. However it went down, because none of those articles that say Daboll told Shedeur, "What are you up, idiot?" Nothing that. But apparently, called him out on it. Right? I mean, as far as I, you can see and tell from Daboll, he tries to be, I don't know, without going overboard, right? But he called him out on it. And apparently Shedeur didn't like being called out on it. and then Daboll didn't like that either. So, I mean, so you got two guys sitting in the room there together or whatever, and just wasn't going well, right? But you can see, there are quite a few videos that I've seen where they've had Dart on there, right? One of them was Dart was just about done, I think. I think it was his 30 visit. And Dart did something on the board, and it was just about done. And Dave was like, let's do one more. And Dart, okay. Right. Dart turns around, and Dave wipes off the board, and he puts some stuff on there, and And he said, all right, turn around. And then he goes like, who, I can't remember what he said. Who's the why or something like that, and Dart went pointed kind of, and Daboll threw something. I said, man, if you pointed the other way, I was going to yell at you or something like that or whatever. And somebody in the background was laughing or whatever. But Dart was prepared. It's once again, if that's what happened. But you just see multiple reports saying that that's kind of something like what happened with Shedeur. Right? You are, unless, you're John Elway, Peyton Manning, Luck, one of these guys that's like, this is Jesus Christ. He's coming out of college. He is the greatest player of all time. Just draft him, throw him in there, and you win 3 Super Bowls. I mean, but Shedeur's not that, right? You're going on a job interview, right? I mean, you're not God's gift to the world, right? So your possibly future employer is going to want to hire you, right? If you see some chinks in the armor, they might kind of think otherwise, right? Well, let's also not forget, I'm not saying this has anything at all to do with Shedeur. But let's not forget when Coach Prime was coming out in the draft of '89, right? What a draft that was. Aikman and Coach Prime and some guy by the name of Barry Sanders, and just phenomenal draft. But the Giants wanted to interview, I guess, Deion Sanders. And he said this multiple times. He said, it's a true story. And the Giants gave him, and I can see, where Deion, coming from. But the Giants wanted to talk to him, and they he they gave him a book, and he's like, it was like this thick. It was like as thick as like a phone book. He said, so, but he's like, what's this? So the Giants, wanted to, I guess, they didn't have 30 visits back then. I don't know exactly what they had, but the Giants wanted to sit down and talk to him. And, maybe if they were that taken by him, maybe they would have traded up and maybe got him. Who knows? But I don't think that was going to be the case. But anyway, they wanted to talk to him. They gave him a book. Was it their defensive plays or, whatever it was. But he said it was like as thick as a phone book. He's like, excuse me. He goes, what are you guys drafting? And I think he said 10th. Let's take a look here. 1989 NFL draft. I don't think they drafted 10th. I think they drafted a lot higher than that or lower than that or whatever you want to call it. I mean, they had Thomas in there, Derek Thomas in there, Deion Sanders, Barry Sanders, Troy Aikman, Tony Mandrich. Tony Steroid Mandrich, right? Man, I'll tell you what, he had the Packers fooled. Let's see. So Deion got drafted 5th in the 89 draft. The Giants, where did the Giants draft? Giants drafted 18th. Well, I'm taking Brian Williams. The good thing about drafting Brian Williams, now, there's no way the Giants were trading up from 18th to 5th to get him. The good thing and the bad thing, the good thing was Brian Williams came out as a center. Well, we had Bart Oates. So Brian Williams was around with the Giants for a while, but for the first, Bart Oates was with the Giants till 93, I think it was. So Brian Williams, he came out as a center. We drafted number 18 overall from Minnesota, by the way, right? So the first, let's see here. So his first 5 years, he only started 6 games because we had a center. But Williams was with the Giants in 94, 95, and 96, and then he came back when he was 33 years old at 1999. He played 12 games. But his final 4 seasons with the Giants, he was the Giants starting center, okay? We drafted him number 18 overall. He played in almost every game, but he would snap maybe a long snapper or something like that or whatever. But he only started in 6 games. But anyway, I don't think there's any way in HEL double hockey 6 we were trading up to get Coach Prime. But anyway, I'm sorry. So Deion Sanders, where are you guys drafting? And Deion said, I think they said 10th or something like that. Well, I didn't think they were drafting that because in 88, they had a good record. They lost out on the final game of the season when they lost to the Jets, which wound up being a great game, really good game. But if the Giants had beaten the Jets, the Giants would have won the division. Giants lost. That was an Altoon. The Jets went ahead. Giants came back. Giants finally got ahead with a little bit of time left. Then the Jets got the ball back and marched down the field and scored a touchdown. I think it was 28-24. Giants got the ball back and they started marching down the field, but they ran out of time. But it was a really good game. So the Giants in 88 had a very good record. It just that they were tied with the Eagles, and I think the Eagles had the tiebreaker over the Giants because the Eagles. That was it, 88, 89, and 90. I think the Eagles beat the Giants 5 out of 6 times or something like that. So the Eagles had the tiebreaker over the Giants in 88. I think they might have been both 10-6. So the Giants in 88 had a good record. So they wouldn't have been drafted 10th. So, but if you ever see the video that Deion's talking about this, Deion's asking him, where are you drafting at? And he said, I think they said 10th or something like that. Well, they weren't drafted 10th. It was 18th. But Deion's well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to be there when you guys are drafting. So, so I think he put the book down and he left the room, right? So that was, I understand he's confident and this, that, and the other thing and all, but, these guys are trying to, your future employers, and, for you just to walk out on a meeting or whatever. So I don't know if Shedeur has any of that in him. Don't know. I also heard all the things too about Shedeur. Once again, I have no idea if this stuff's true, but you read certain things that Shedeur was kind of doing a poor job at some of his interviews, possibly at teams he doesn't want to go to. Right, so. But Deion Sanders defends Shedeur's preparation for the meeting with the Giants. Primetime says, my kids are built for everything. Okay. There were a number of reports before the draft that the Giants soured on the idea of drafting quarterback Shedeur Sanders after an ill-fated meeting with the Giants head coach Brian Daboll. Now, Sanders' father, Coach Prime, has hit back at that idea that Shedeur would not have been prepared for a meeting with any NFL coach. When you sit up there and you say something like he went into a meeting unprepared, like, dude, continued Deion, Shedeur Sanders, who has had 6 different offensive coordinators, who has still functioned and leveled up every time we brought somebody new in, and you're going to tell me that he was unprepared? You're going to tell me he had on headphones? Anybody who knows my son understands he's a professional. Well, I also saw it too on some reports that he had like headphones on. So you got to understand, my kids are built for everything. We've always been in front of the camera, so they know how to navigate. They know how to handle themselves. You're not going to catch them in no foolery or no mess. You're not going to do that whatsoever. Todd McShay of The Ringer was the first analyst to discuss a difficult meeting between Sanders and Daboll. Shedeur didn't have a great interview with Brian Daboll in a private visit, McShay said. Now, there's a guy coming out, right? You know, people know Todd McShay, right? And he's putting his behind it, right? This is what happened, right? He's not going to put this stuff out if he doesn't have some pretty good, solid evidence that happened, right? An install package came in. Preparation wasn't there for it. Shedeur got called out on it. He didn't like that. He didn't like that it was being called out on it. And Brian Daboll did not appreciate him not liking it. Yeah. That's what I've heard from many articles from different people. Giants ended moving from number 34 to 25, obviously, to take draft. In the draft to take Dart. Sanders went in the 5th round. A monumental fail for a player who thought he would be selected in the top 3. Honestly, the more all of this stuff swirls around, the more I'm glad it's not the Giants having to deal with it. Yep, me too. I mean, because, sometimes it just can be a sideshow. You know what I mean, because the thing is that, if Shedeur would ever, become the starter, just say of the Giants, and the Giants lose some games or something like that, Shedeur could have horrible games. Could. I'm not saying he would. No idea. He might become the greatest quarterback of all times. Who knows? But there would never, ever, 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 ever be a time where out of Deion's mouth, yeah, my kid screwed up. Never hear that. If Shedeur throws an interception, it's the ball's fault. It's the guy obviously must have ran the wrong route. The guy didn't turn around quick enough. But I mean, it's nothing. He'll never. So. Yeah. And that's another thing. As I said, if things start going sour, right? If the Giants had him, Shedeur's in there. He's the quarterback and all that. And the Giants, whatever, start 3-11, 3-12. Coach Prime would. Oh, my kid, he's had a rough year. He needs to get a little bit better. You'll never hear that from him. My kid's the greatest of all time. There ain't no better. Nobody ever better. I mean, obviously, the coach don't know how to coach. That's what the problem is. We got a bunch of bad players over there. My son is playing with a bunch of bad players. The coach don't know how to coach, don't know how to call plays. And that GM and that owner of the Giants, total trash. That's what it is. That's what's going on. You'll never hear that from him. So it could become easily a sideshow, right? And thank goodness maybe the Browns have the sideshow, right? Deion Sanders has slammed the Giants over an incident before his son's dramatic NFL draft slide. 23-year-old was widely tipped to be a first-round selection. Reports emerged from the NFL draft last month about Sanders' team visits. An anonymous executive called Sanders' interview the worst he has ever seen. A claim has also emerged from his New York Giants visit that the quarterback failed to spot a deliberate mistake in the playbook. NFL icon Deion coached his son at Colorado Buffalo, and he spoke on the Say What Needs to Be Said podcast about the reports from Sanders' interview. My kids, you aren't going to catch them in no foolery, Deion said. I mean, as I said, the kid would never do anything wrong. Never. If he throws an incomplete pass, well, they gave him a bad ball. That's what it was. Or the center spit on the ball, so it was slippery. So when his son threw the ball, it was, or the guy should have dove to catch the ball, or the guy didn't run the right. Never anything wrong with this. Yeah, so. Are you going to tell me he had on headphones? Well, apparently, there was an anonymous GM that said, yeah. Anybody who knows my son understands he's a professional, like he's going to go into a meeting with headphones on. Come on, man. The Giants traded away, blah, 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 blah. Sanders was expected to go late in the first round with New York, one possible landing spot. He was made to wait until the third day before the Browns took him. So, and that was not before the Browns had already taken Dillon Gabriel in the third round. Now Sanders is in a bitter battle for a roster spot as one of the 4 quarterbacks in Cleveland. He's behind Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Gabriel in the current depth chart, but he has so far impressed. All 4 battling for the starting role, vacated by injured Deshaun Watson. Yeah, there's another absolute classic there. Good old Watson. So I don't know. They're the Browns are kind of like between the Watson, Watson debacle, and hey, they got Sanders. He's very we'll have to wait and see. There's nobody there that's going to totally blow you away. I mean, you got Joe Flacco, the old veteran. Now, when he was with the Browns a couple of years ago, he took them to the playoffs, right? So, but he's a couple of years older. You don't know, but I mean, there's not a wealth of talent there on the Cleveland. But I mean, if you throw Watson in there and you got Pickett and then you got Flacco and you got Gabriel and you got Sanders, they got some quarterbacks. But I mean, there's a good chance Sanders, if he deserves it, I'm sure he's going to get his chance. And if he deserves it, let's hope the guy gets a starting role and we can see what happens, right? But you can certainly see there's a possibility, right? Where, hey, Papa Prime's got his son's back. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But, if it winds up becoming some type of a sideshow or something like that, you don't need that. You don't need that.